that. So by mentioning about Chitta Mantraha, so essentially, in a very naive philosophical way, if we approach this issue, there would be essentially an overwhelming emphasis on non-duality between the human consciousness, the consciousness with which we are trying to approach or meditate on that Parama Shiva Tattva, the ultimate thing, through a particular vehicle. And the vehicle is this mantra through which, and he's saying that, do you know one thing, that this particular means that you are using to attain the mantra devata, which is the heart of this whole mantra, is no different from your consciousness. So there is absolutely no scope for any bheda kalpana, imagination of duality between the person who is meditating on the Adhishtatri Devata of a certain mantra. So the whole approach to mantra is something that you perfect to gain something. We have had preliminary discussion on it. So that was
Uh, Swamiji, I'm not able to hear you.
it's part of, and chitta here is not necessarily the way this is defined here. Chitta is this vehicle which helps your ascendance to a higher level of consciousness, or the highest level consciousness, where you sort of get dissolved in the ultimate consciousness of the Paramashiva Tattva. That is what is mentioned here. Now, the next one, so who is the guy who is making meditation? In the fifth sutra of the first chapter, you remember, Udyamaha Bhairavaha. That is what we had studied. Udyama, the very effort itself. There is no Lord Shiva to go and propitiate and touch. The Sambhavopaya, where the emphasis is on highest kind of spiritual integration of non-duality, realization of non-duality through meditation. The sadhaka's very effort, the moment he is conscious of it, Bhagwan, he becomes that again and again there is emphasis on it. He realizes that Paramatatva. He is no more any different from it. And we have several sutras dealing with it, where Lord Shiva tells Parvati, whatever he wants, whatever he wishes, it happens. And why? Because he is no more a human being. He's all the time established in me. So essentially, it's my sweet will which gets carried out by what apparently looks like human will on his part, which is kind of cooking up in a human individual. But that's not true. It's all me, because he's just a cover for my game, my whole, all these five Shaktis through which this whole sansara is operated by the Paramashiva. And he's saying this prayatna, there was a little to be covered from this, a little which was not fully covered. Prayatna sadhakaha akritaka yaha prayatnaha. So you are not making a lot of effort or anything, but it happens spontaneously. Because the effort part would gain prominence in the third chapter, when we will be dealing with the Arnavopaya. The Arnavopaya is for the preliminary sadhakas, of course, maybe superior to many of us. The Arnavopaya sadhakas would be the ones who would be relying on some acceptance, even though it's presumptuous, because reality is non-dual, but there is a presumptuous assumption of duality in the Arnavopaya and the Shaktopaya. I have discussed that in the last class. There is non-difference between the Saktopaya of the second chapter and the first chapter, insofar as the emphasis is laid on non-difference between the Sadhya and the Sadhaka. Then there is some distinction, the distinction between the similarity between the Saktopaya and the Anuvapaya is insofar as there is some presumptuous acceptance of Bheda Pratha, some kind of duality, because end of the day you are sitting to meditate on something. You are directly not going there. So this middle point we are dealing with is saying prayatnaha sadhakaha. So there is, you do not have somebody is exerting himself to find yourself established in that non-dual consciousness of Paramashiva. How does it happen? He gives a beautiful example, Kshemaraja. Yathokta rupasya mantrasya anusanditsa prathama unmesha avastamba prayatatma akrutako ya prayatnaha sa eva sadhakaha. So there is a desire to find out, because you said mantram chittaha, yeah, chittam mantraha, whatever, either way, this way, that way. He's saying first, what did you say? Chittam mantraha, the mind itself is mantra. Once you say this, doubt arises in the minds of this sadhaka that what is this particular, how do I explain? What is this mantra? Then he's explaining that particular akritaka, which is spontaneous, yaha prayatnaha, sa eva sadhakaha. And what is that? Mantra ituhu mantra devata tadatmya padaha. And that particular thing, that through this effort, you are essentially having tadatmya patti. You are meditating so deeply on the mantra devata, you actually get his swarupa in you. That is what he will say in the next verse. And his Si Tantra Sadabhava is the name of the text from where Kshemaraja is quoting here. Is a little interesting. Let's pay attention to what he says. It's very, very interesting and gives us a clear, easy to understand handle so far as this particular secret about mantra is being discussed here. Amishatu jatha swasthaha khastaha sampashyang sakuni priye. There's an eagle which is flying very high, and we were discussing that in the last class. Wonderful aerodynamics and eye body wing coordination. They see a fish swimming, sometimes appearing, and this fellow is flying very high, several meters high, and he's able to glide very sharply, very quickly. He knows how to withdraw the wing so that it can glide so sharp and so fast, and comes, and in one attempt he picks up that fish and goes off, or could be any other animal, small animal. So he's saying amisham tu yatha khastaha akasastaha. So this eagle which is flying very high in the sky, sampashan diktehi sakunihi priye. That eagle, do you know, my dear? Kshipram akarsayet yadvad vegena sahajena tu. He doesn't make any effort. It's just like it's a game of his left hand. They don't exert. The eagles don't go to any training school as to how to hunt. It happens naturally to them. They're very instinctive about it. Maybe they have a few hits and misses, but they're instinctive. They do it without any effort. Tadvad eva hi yogendra. This particular, the sharpest among the sadhakas, manovindum vikarsayet. Now, this Vindu Savda I need to explain. This word would come, and this is used by different schools of thought in different ways. Vindu here is when you have any meditation, how does it happen? There's a meditator. He's using his consciousness. There is meditation. And through using his meditation, the process, he is able to reach the object of his meditation. So there is a pramata, there is pramana, this process, dhyana, dhyatri, dhyana, and dhyayavastu, the object of his meditation. He's saying, even though these things are there, what is the Swarupa of Shiva in all this? He doesn't have these dualities. Parama Shiva, Vindu, So it's made out of Vidhi Kriyayam, that is one dhatu root, etymologically speaking. And that means here, Vindu word is representing the Swatantra Ichha Sakti of Paramashiva. He is not dependent on anyone. We have a bit of a problem in Vedanta also here because we have some karma siddhanta. Also in Buddhism, we have a karma siddhanta. There has to be some cause for any effect to find expression. So, how would Paramashiva do anything? So, he has to rely on our karma. Any srishti which happens is because of our previous karmas, and there is a reprocessing of all our papa punyas. And based on this information, a certain world is given to us. We must have done a lot of papas. So we have got a samsara, or this whole physical and social, whatever universe we are in. We have a decline in terms of the living standards, decline in the amount of warmth and love and gregariousness that we experience towards each other. And there is, environmental devastation. There are wildfires in different parts of the world. We are into a very bad phase of human existence, the existence of all other animals. It's because of all papas and punyas that we have had. These are the results of our past actions. But remember here, in Kashmiri Saivism, unlike in other schools of thought where he is kind of bound by his own rules, Paramashiva is also he will not break his own rules. But he's Swatantra, he's not dependent on anything. He's Swatantra, we don't have to imagine the idea of Maya like in Vedanta. Because without Maya, what will Parambrahma do? He's Nirvikara, Nishkriya, Nishala. There is no Nama Rupa, nothing. He cannot even listen to all your prayers. Paramashiva is having that Purna Ahanta Rupa, fully all the time aware of himself. And his self awareness is actually Shakti, that Vimarsha, Prakasha and Vimarsha. These are the two principles which come together. And remember, it's not come together because that's one reality. We are just looking at it from two standpoints. Very similar to Vedanta with a very sharp, finer difference. So, what he's saying, that Vindu is what? That Paraprakasha, Shiva Rupa. That is the ultimate Avivhaga Prakashaha. That is what he's mentioning. Avivhagaha. Even though you have Pramata, Pramana, Prameyadi, it's there. When you have Ichha to create Srishti, obviously you have to allow these dualities to appear because you have to become a Karta. You want to create a universe, but he remains non-dual. There is no duality in that supreme existence, in that supreme truth, in that supreme expression of that consciousness. Though that Bindu. So, but our mind, full of dualities. If we sit in meditation for 5 minutes, you can figure out. Even 2 minutes may become difficult. Your mind will go there, but you would see that it's sliding away and there's something else appears. And depending on where you meditate, if you meditate here in the Agyan Chakra, of course, a lot of images and other things will appear. You can appear on your breath much better, or you can focus in your heart center, the Anahata Chakra, better. But then still the mind will wander off and you will be pulled away by the game of this mind. So the opposite has to happen, that the mind has to withdraw itself. Kurmangani va Bharata, in Bhagavad Gita he says that from the Bhuthana Dasa, the yogi withdraws all his senses at will. Like you have the tortoise withdraws all his legs of the limbs and becomes like a piece of stone. The yogi withdraws him to himself. So what he's saying, Yogindra Manavindum Vikarshayat. He pulls his mind to establish itself in that Paraprakasha Shiva Tattva. Then he gives another beautiful thing. So you have to make a lot of effort, right? In Patanjali Yoga Sutra, we have meditated on that. How that happens in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna says, "Oh, you told me such beautiful things, but I don't think that's going to happen with me." Because the mind runs away whenever you try. Then Bhagavan says, yeah, you have to understand. I agree with you. Raga esha, dvesha esha. So these raga and dvesha, these are powerful emotions and they'll pull you asunder. Atatainaha. These are like assassins. They're going to come and destroy your meditation. Be aware of these two pulls and pushes in life of raga and dvesha. What you don't like, you will have aversion. What you like, you will have attraction. So attraction and aversion are the two principles which will always keep you unsettled in life. So a lot of effort. He's saying something different here. He's not saying something different. We have to assume that he's talking about a category of sadhakas who have ascended to the next level where this particular thing is no more an issue. And what is he saying? Yathasaro dhanushanso yatneta atadya dhavati. So you create that tension in the bow. Okay, you pull the bow. And if you look at the archery, and they release the arrow. When they release the arrow, once it's released, the arrow doesn't require any further push. Now, if you look at the rocket which goes off, how does it go? Okay, so you have to have fuel in it, and then there is emission. It creates, it has to push the whole thing, and it goes up, neutralizing the principle of gravitation through buoyancy. But in yoga, that's not the case, he's saying. You just have to create that powerful tension. That is your resolve. The moment it happens, the moment you release it, it moves. Air friction, you'll have a few disturbances. You'll have a few pratibandhakas, but the arrow moves fast on its path to the destination, the intended destination. Similarly, he's saying prayatnaha sadhakaha. That very prayatna is spontaneous. Once it's released, once you have done the sankalpa, and you're sitting in meditation, you quickly go and establish yourself in the Parama Shiva Tattva. He's saying yatha saro dhanu sangsto is established in the bow. Yatnena, and once you have yatna, that means you have applied that thing. You have already stretched it. Atadya dhavati, then you don't have to push it anymore. Yatnena atadya, you don't have to do any further effort. It's established in the dhanu in a particular tension mode, that's good enough. After that, no yatna, no tadana, nothing of that sort. And then, tatha vindur vararohe ucharaneneva dhavati. Now this word ucharana is there. What is ucharana? There are a lot of commentators who have mentioned about it. Uchara in Kashmiri Saivism is not about pronunciation, even though actually mantras have to be pronounced. But the inner secretive meaning of it is pranadi kriya, prana, pana, vyana, udana, samana. You have these pancha pranas. What is the pranamaya kosha? You have the pancha karmendriyas and the pancha pranas together, these 10 factors together account for the pranamaya kosha, the seas, which makes us dynamic. We can move, we can do things. So here the emphasis is on that uchara. It's not about pronunciation of the mantra, but it's about that the moment you are sitting and you are doing this pranapana, the kriya, there's another interpretation of this uchara, jivanatmaka. See, he's saying like, look, the body is actually lifeless. The body cannot do anything. But once you have prana sanchara in it, that movement of air, prana and apana, and you have all other activities, it behaves as if it's a living being. Without pranavayu, without that air movement, this beautiful or ugly body is useless. So he's saying what? Ucharaneneva dhavati. So now we have an example and we have the application point. What is the example? Example is like the eagle pounces on the object of its attention without any effort. Similarly, the sadhaka is able to pull its mind without any effort towards the destination, which is Paramashiva Tattva, Bindu. And then he gives another example. The example is of the arrow in the bow. The way the arrow leaves the bow, once it leaves, it's on its own. Similarly, the sadhaka has done the sankalpa, and the mind moves very fast towards the destination without any pratibandhakas. And how does that happen? Uchcharaneni. So he sets any extra thing, any pujas, any animal sacrifices, any music, any mantras, and all kinds of tools and materials that you need for any puja. None of these is talked about here. It's completely swatantra thing. Only breathing, that's all you need to do. The only thing which you are doing is breathing, because of course you have to hold your body in a certain position. You have to keep yourself alive to experience anything. You see, the body and the mind complex are not what gives us God realization or enlightenment, but the body mind complex are a minimum condition. Without it, yeah, I mean, now there is a lot of discussion on NDE, called near death experiences, where some scientists have started thinking that consciousness has nothing to do with the brain, and it has to be much larger than being perceived as a biological, factor. It's like a biological thing. It's basically the cells. That is what all these neuroscientists will tell us. But there are a lot of people who would like to move a little further and not reduce consciousness to the neurons and their activities or their states or whatever. Now he's saying Ucharana eva dhavati. And then he says Tad groho mantra sadabhavaha. And then you have that realization that happens very easily. And then he so moves further, and the last part of the last sutra was, which we hadn't done, is interesting. What he says is Atrahi tadvada iti akritaga nija udyoga valena yogendraha manaha karma. Now you say aham vidyalayam gacchami. I am going to the school. Okay. So you are bringing the dog home. You are buying a book. So what is the object of your effort? It's your mind. Now look at the mystic aspect of it. Who is the karta? I am the karta. To be a karta, what do I need? I need individual consciousness. I need that mind. What is the object of this effort? Mantra ucharan. And to be able to do mantra, vichar, everything, I again need mind. But there are very subtle ways in which I'm distinguishing one aspect or one reality about the mind from another reality. We're using the word not in English but in Sanskrit, manas, that jumps around. There's something called buddhi, and that deliberates, and there is something called chitta, where you have all these stored, the hard disk. And then you have ahankara, kartutva buddhi, that I'm doing this. So mana buddhi, chitta, ahankara, the different distinctions we make. So he's saying the object of your attention here is the mind. That is karma. Because you are essentially going to work on your manas to take it to that bindu, which is the Paramashattva, that Satta Swarupa, the pure consciousness of Paramashiva. So essentially, it's like this. It's like a hologram, if I can give that example, because it's an often repeated example in Vedanta circles. So I'm a little shy of doing that, but let's do it like this. Or let's better give the example of a guy who is under neurosis, or he's under a very mild schizophrenic attack. He's not a schizophrenic, he's a normal guy, but he's in a very acute neurotic phase. He's a kind of having a hysterical phase. He's traumatized. He has lost somebody. There's a breakup in the relationship. Now that fellow, normally you cannot understand unless you have seen somebody. He's actually very normal. Somebody was telling me a very good story about how that can happen. He said that one of his uncles who had this schizophrenia, he said whole night he started discussing with his wife, who was the mommy of this guy, very nice conversation that we will do this, we'll do that, we'll do that. and yeah, don't believe in all that, and everything is going to be fine. And he was a teenager, and he pretended that he was asleep, and he was thinking why people are thinking he's mad, because he's having such a sweet, nice, caring, empathetic conversation with his wife, who is the mommy of this little boy. And in the morning, he's back to that particular state of dissociation disorder, completely split. In the morning, he's saying something else. He doesn't remember anything. So it's like he has got completely disturbed. Now let's bring it to our sadhana thing. The mind is kind of all over the place and connected because of the indriyas with so many things, and there are so many sanskaras, and all these things are coming and overloading us. But it's like a spell of unreal diversity appearing as real. I mean, the best example could be if you are very fond of watching TV channels or social media on elections, either in America or India. It's most of the countries are becoming very similar, sharply divided. Nobody is interested in truth. Everybody is interested in expanding his own prejudice and considering that as truth. And how do you deal with these people? The best thing is perhaps to just switch off the TV and avoid anybody who sends anything on WhatsApp or puts it on Facebook. You just remember cool, and then you don't have any anxiety, any anger with anybody. You have no arguments. You are very peaceful. That is what the sadhana is all about. That this mind, one, it's oriented towards this. All the pratibandhakas that we see as pulling us down and not allowing us to establish ourselves in that Parama Shiva Tattva, it's just a presumptuous reality. And once a person realizes this, the science says that he can very quickly go there without any problem. Okay? Having shown that, and then he says, Yogindraha Manaha Karma Bindum Vikarshayet Paraprakasatmatam Prapayat iti. Paraprakasatma. Now just look at it. Paraprakasatva. Paraprakasatva. What is aparaprakasatva? Okay, the light of a lamp. Your mind is able to unravel some problems. So there is some prakasa sakti in the mind also. We call it chidabhasa. Chitvad abhasate iti chidabhasa in Vedanta. So it's not exactly real light. It's like a mirror reflecting the sun, and others confusing that as a sun. Whosoever in the classroom, and some boys are mischievous, they're reflecting the sun, and the mind similarly is able to throw some light. It's not its original light. Paraprakasha is Swayam Prakasha. And this particular dharma, paraprakasatmata, that swarupa, do we have? We have and we don't have. We don't have so far. We are tied down to these thoughts and all our movements. But once we are back in our swarupa, of course, we are no different from Paraprakasha. It's all creation. It's all a game of Lord Shiva. So he's saying, Para prakasat matam prapayat. And you get that para prakasat. So that means what? You get Parama Shiva bhava. Bhairavapatti happens. There is no further journey. The journey ends. And Vedanta is say moksha. And here they're saying para prakasat matam prapayet. Tatha binduhu para prakasha. Bindu kya hai? That itself is para prakasha. Avivhaga prakasha. Vivhaga, even though is there, because he's trying to create, he remains para prakasha. Avivhaga binduhu para prakasha. Akritaka udyantrutatmana. You are having udyama, you are making prayatna, you are making effort. However, it's not artificial. There are two ways in which it happens. There's again a Vedanta story I'm constrained to give. This was narrated in one of his talks by the famous, the one who passed away in the 90s. The Kanchipuram Shankaracharya was very, very famous. He had given a beautiful story. How does the Upanishad, as a guru, give us some headway in our spiritual progress. How does that happen? So he talked about a story in which there is a particular country which was attacked by a foreign enemy country, neighbor country, and then they wanted to kill the king. The queen knows that, the minister knows that this queen is going to be killed. He wants to save the prince who is yet to be born. The queen is very young. So somehow he kidnaps the minister, virtually kidnaps the queen out of the palace and runs away on a horse, taking her away from the capital city because he's going to fall into the hands of the enemy power. And he drops this pregnant lady saying, look, you just be safe. We have no other option. You have to be there in this tribal community, some kind of a forest community. Lives this lady with the chieftain of that forest community, whom he somehow knows. He says, keep an eye on this lady. He doesn't even say she is the queen because he might divulge the secret and then enemies will get hold of her and kill her. She's left there. She gives birth to a little baby. She passes away. So this little boy, who is the prince, is being raised by this forest community chieftain as his own child, godchild. And the minister is keeping a watch. Now the country is under the rule of this enemy power, but the minister keeps visiting the forest community, waiting for the prince to become a young man. He's very loyal to his own country, own monarchy. And then when the boy becomes 16 and 17, he finds that, yes, he has the genes, and then he's kind of fiddling around with leopards and cheetahs, and he's not scared of these wild animals. He goes to him and says that we have to attack this kingdom. He said, what? He said, you are not this forest community boy's boy. You are actually the king of this whole territory. He said, you are joking. I don't know anything. What are you talking about? I have to go and collect forest produces for my mom. He said, no. Then he tells him the story. That much Upanishad does to us. That much what Siva Sutra does to us. The next journey is what we have to do. So what he's mentioning here is very beautifully is mentioned. Akritaka udyantritatmana. Spontaneously, this boy realizes that I am the prince. The moment he realizes I'm the prince, the minister's role is over. Because now he is self-motivated. And then he's on an autopilot. He's going to raise, then he raises the army and he attacks and captures his kingdom. So that is what he's saying, akritaka udyantritatmana. That sense of agency, which is not artificially, which is not superimposed. It happens spontaneously because of self-awareness. Because we are waking up from a state of stupor. And then what happens? Ucharena dhavati. So with that pranatmaka kriya, then he is able to move forward. Prasarati ityarthaha. Etacha spande. Then he's talking about from Spandakarika. It is the verse number 6 from the second chapter of Spandakarika. Ayam eva udayastasya dheyasya dhai chetasi. Ayam eva udayaha. Udaya is what? Rising of the sun or something? Lord Shiva rises in us? No. The Udaya Sabda here refers to Sakshatkara, self-realization. There is nothing called a realization which is away from us and we have to go there, complete the journey, and then benefit from it. Even earlier, the language is very cryptic. And he had mentioned Udyama Bhairava. That is what the fifth sutra in the previous chapter. Ayam eva udayas tasya. Tasya dhyayasya. What is dhya vastu here? That bindu, Paramashiva Tattva. Then you are face to face with it. The moment you wake up, the moment the arrow is released from the bow, the moment the eagle has seen the fish, it's now gliding down very sharply. He's not confused. It happens. He's meditative. Similarly, this guy is mentioning that prapayat iti tatha binduhu Then he's saying dheyasya dhyayi chetasi. In the mind of this guy who is meditating, he is able to realize the dhyaya vastu. That means his dhyana is perfectly successful. And what is the sakshatkara? He explains in the latter half of this particular couplet. Tadatmata samapattir ichchataha sadhakasya yasa. The sadhaka wanted to do the sadhana to start with because he wanted to have tadatmata pattihi. Tad is that Paramashiva Tattva, and its Swarupa, its Dharma is Tadatmata, and he wanted to achieve it. And he's already there. The moment he sits in the meditation, now we're talking about Prayatnaha. What is the spiritual practice with the mantra? And then first he mentions Chitta Mantraha. Then he's saying Prayatnaha Sadhakaha. If you look at it, mantra and sadhana, these are all being explained in a certain, very cryptic language, all the time emphasizing only one thing, that there is no duality. You have to understand the secret. You are not looking like the simple bhakti traditions would say bhakta and a bhagavan. It's not that. Here there is meditation, there is upasana, but upasana which starts with a pedestal where there is some presumptuous duality, but all the time trying to reach that final destination where there is no duality. That is the beauty of it, which is almost, so you have to sort of reach there. And then if you look at the mantra, then look at the third mantra, because you are going to do sadhana, you're going to do prayatna. So he's saying, what is the secret of this mantra? Okay, I understand chitta mantra. Then you say prayatna sadhakaha. That itself will take me there, this prayatna. Swatantra akritaka udyamaha. That is the effort I will make and I will reach there. If that is the case, how does that happen? That is what he's now going to explain in the verse number 3. What is the sutra number 3? Vidya Sarira Satta Mantra Rahasyam. There are 3 words explaining what is the secret of the mantras. Vidya Sarira Satta. Now, each of these words, literal meaning is one, and the actual meaning in the context of our discussion will be slightly different. So, Vidya, what is Vidya? Vidya is that supreme consciousness of the non-dual existence of the supreme consciousness. That particular thing is what we are referring to here as Vidya. That is what is intended to be conveyed here. So, what is he trying to say? Idrisa sadhaka sadhyasya mantrasya purvapakshitvam viryam lakshayati. He's explaining. Vidya, what is that? Vidya paradvaya pratha. Para advaya pratha. That is Vidya. What else? See, all Maya, then you have all dualities. Vidya is Suddha Vidya. Vidya, the moment you mention Vidya, it's non-dual realization. And Vidya, Sarira, the 3 aspects of any mantra is saying. There is Vidya, that means that awareness of the unity of this whole universe, the conscious unity of this whole universe. Then what is Sharira? Sharira is not a physical body. Whenever you have a mantra, there are a few varnas that are brought together, a mantra is made. Either from any text or any guru gives it. It is not meaningless, but the meaning is not important. Some people say you just have to meditate on it. So even if you don't know the meaning, even if you don't know the meaning, you don't know what is a gun, but you fire it, there's going to be some consequence. You don't know what the camera does, like children play with cell phones with cameras, and they put their fingers and there's some pictures taken. They don't even know they have taken pictures, but pictures haven't taken. So some people have a view that yantra, similarly, if you keep at home, whether you like it or not, they give you some results. And mantras, if you chant, whether you understand or not, they give you some results. But here we are saying that no, if you don't know the exact inner meaning of it, you are not going to get the intended meaning. And what is the intended meaning? Getting liberation, getting complete self-realization. All small things are fine. So it's like you go to Badrinath and you don't find a way to enter into the temple, you see a lot of mountains. I saw a lot of people, and yeah, there were a lot of people who were selling prasadam, and I bought some pictures. Did you find a way into the temple? It was closed. But you will see a lot of things. And you will also have the feeling of tirtha. So without realizing the inner meaning of the mantras, we can do mantra sadhana, but it would be like visiting Badrinath without finding your way in, because you are not on time or the queue is too long and it's very hard to get into the temple, the inner sanctum. So you don't have a correct darshan. Similarly, the sakshatkara will continue to elude us if we do not know the secret signs of the mantras, as we are discussing in the Siva Sutras. So what does he mention? Savdarasihi. So what is the Vidya Sariro Bhagavan? Savdarasihi. Then if you look at Mantra Devata, who is kind of hidden in that Mantra Rashi? Sarira here means Swarupa. What is that mantra Swarupa? So one word talks about Vidya, which is awareness, realization. The other word talks about Sarira, which means Swarupa. So you're using Vidya, awareness, to get hold of the Swarupa. And then finally what he says, Satta. Satta is being, the existence of this whole universe. These three things appear as different. They are not different from each other. But there is nothing called Vidya outside of which there is a physical universe. That Vidya of the Absolute One, when you are realizing this, there is nothing which is outside of it. That Absolute One encompasses and pervades everything. The Satta, the existence, the easiness, it's all pervaded by that Supreme I consciousness. Who is the Mantra Devata? And then this Vidya, the realization. These are all one, because there is no one to realize this ultimate truth through a process of meditation or vichara, which is different from the dhyata, the meditator, or different from what is being meditated on. Why? Because we are non-dualists. This is a school of non-dualism. Therefore, he's saying Vidya Sarira Satta Mantra Rahasyam. He's again harping on the same thing. You see, there is a organic unity between the first sutra and the third sutra. Chittam mantra he had mentioned. Therefore, he's saying the secret of this mantra lies in realizing the unity of these. And let's look at, then there is a lot of long discussion here, and we'll have the elaborate discussion. I hope that we'll be able to finish it tomorrow. But today we'll do as much as we can of the commentary. Then he says what? Tasya ya satta, that Parama Shiva, okay, Bhagavan, the mantra devata, Tasya ya satta, his being, Asesa Vishwa, Avhedamaya, okay, Vishwa Avhedamaya Punna Ahang Vimarsanatma Sphurata. That throbbing consciousness, which encompasses, which pervades this whole universe. Asesa Vishwa, and you have this diversity and duality. Then he says, what? Abhedamaya. And actually, the Lord pervades everything, but the all doesn't find existence out of him and is not different from it. Yet we are having this sentence, the Lord pervades the universe. The Lord is the universe. The universe has no real existence of its own without the Lord. But Lord pervades the universe. That is how we are making it. Because he is Vishwamaya and Vishwotirna. He is immanent as well as transcendent at the same time. It's a matter of perception. It depends on what's our vantage point, where we are standing and what we are seeing. Okay? So therefore he's saying, Asesa Vishwavhedamaya Punna Ahang. And it's not, you have this Panchakanchukatva and Kala and other things happen, right? So he says, no, it's not like that. Vidya has not become Kala there. It's Paramashiva, the Swatantriya Hani and Apurna Manyata. These are the two conditions for Abadha Avastha. Paramashiva gives it to us. He doesn't become somebody who is constrained by Apurna Manyata or Swatantriya Hani. That is what explains our existence. He remains supreme. Before Srishti, after Srishti, and during Srishti, he sustains it and helps it. But he remains untouched by any of these. But he has become everything. Where Sansara is Apurna, Sansara is struck by, emptiness and insufficiency and deficits of all sorts. When you say Lord has become all this, then obviously he's suffering from deficits. No. These deficits characterize our existence, the existence of matter. But the Supreme which manifests as thus is not touched by any of these. Therefore, he's saying, Asesa Vishwabhedamaya Purna Ahang Vimarsanatma, in that self-awareness, that Vimarsanatma. So here the Sakti word comes in because of the Vimarsha, Spurata, that expression, that throbbing consciousness, Sa Mantranam Rahashyam. Do you know what is the secret of mantra? The secret of mantra is nothing other than that non-dual, pure, all-encompassing, all-pervading, throbbing consciousness, that dynamic consciousness. That is the secret. Upanishad, that is what is the secret of it. Yadyuktam Sitantra Sadabhave. Again, he's quoting from the book Sitantra Sadabhava. And that is the most powerful sentence that we have mentioned even earlier. Sarve Varnatmaka Mantras. All the mantras are made of a few syllables, some alphabets and syllables. And then what? Techa Sakyatmikaha Priye. My dear, Bhagavan is explaining to Ma Parvati. This is Agama. In some text in which Ma Parvati explains to Lord Shiva. In some text in which Lord Shiva is explaining everything to Parvati. Most of the Tantra Shastras. Parvati asks questions. So he is saying, Sarve Varnatmaka Mantraha. All mantras are varnas, syllables and alphabets and all that. Techa, and these varnas, Sakyatmika Priye, they don't have independent existence. They are representing different Shaktis. Varga. So you have these Ashtavargas. I had briefly mentioned, and today we will discuss that. Maybe today or maybe tomorrow. That's what is mentioned here. Sakyatmika Priye. Saktistu Matraka Jnaya. So there is energy behind all these varnas. Each varna represents some energy. This is the signs of sound. So there is some vibration, and the vibration represents some energy. It's a field of energy. Each alphabet, each varna represents a field of energy. And then what he says, Saktistu Matruka Jnaya. And each of these, remember the Matrikas, they are Bandhakarikas. They bind us up, isn't it? And these Saktis, these are all Matrikas. They are mothers of this whole universe. Because we create words, we create mantras, whatever we say, whichever we want to narrate the world, we want the help of these varnas. And they have these energies. And these are all Matrikas. And then what he says, Sacha Jnaya Sivatmika, and this Matrika, because they don't have any independent existence, this minor Shakti fields, the energy fields, they're coming out of, earlier there was this example. Why this Mahahrida word is again mentioned? Because it's the ocean bed. You have that deep sea, which is very quiet, out of which at the surface you have so many waves. You have bubbles, you have storm surges, all kinds of things happen. Similarly, out of this whole cosmic energy field, you have these apparent, mutually sometimes running counter to each other. They're different, they're diverse. Energy fields are created. Therefore, he's saying in that Parashakti, that Parvati, that that he's saying Shivatmika. She doesn't have any independent existence. She's not. Na Shivaha Sakti Varjita, na Sakti Shiva Rahita. There cannot be any Sakti without Shiva. There cannot be any Shiva which is without Shakti, because Shiva, without that Sakti, it loses that Ikara, becomes Shava. It's like a dead body, cannot do anything. That is why these Kashmiri Saivisms make fun of the Param Brahma of Sankara Vedanta, saying he's like a Pangu, he cannot do anything. He requires Maya. Paramashiva, he can't do anything. Why? Shakti is an integral part of him. For you, it's Nirguna Brahma. For us, all gunas in him. What is the problem? He's Swatantra. He's not constrained by the qualities. Just because he has gunas, you cannot describe him as diverse. He's one. He can appear as many. How? No, because he has Swatantra Sakti. Yeah, that supreme will, he can manifest the way he wants. Okay? And then iti tatreva ayam arthaha ati rahasyopi pitasya sputikratah tathacha. Then he's saying, no, the guys who do not know the secret of these mantras, mantra and mantri are not different. All mantras are made out of varnas, and varnas have different fields of energy, and all these fields of energy are ultimately from the Matrika, the Matrisakti, which is ultimately Shivatmika. That is the secret. Anything the guy who doesn't know, how does he behave? Najananti Gurum Devam. These idiots have picked up some mantras, they take Diksha, but they don't know the mantra devata or the guru. What do? Sastroktan samayangs tatha. In the Shastra, there are samayachara. There are a lot of meditative practices which are prescribed in the Agama Shastras. They have no clue, they have no access to it. Why? Because they are not open to the secret. They get lost in the details, forgetting what is the paramount, purpose of all these sadhanas, which is abhedapatti. Damba kautalya nirata. And then they are very egoistic and they're hypocritical. They want this power. I know this, I know that. Lola arthaha. And they are very fond of sense pleasures because they think they are tantrika, so they have Mohini Vidya. I have mantra siddhi. A lot of people, these gurus. So they enchant young ladies and rich men. I mean, rich men or women. Riches and the comfort of having followers and then power and everything else. Is saying Kriyojitaha, and then they're devoid of any real spiritual practice. They're free from real spiritual practice. They're doing all nonsensical things. That is what he mentions. And then he moves forward. Then he's saying, Asmatu Karana Devi. Because of this cause, do you know, my dear? Maya Viryam Pragopitam. I have hidden the power of these mantras. Mantras are there in the books. Okay, pick it up. I'll not tell you the secret. Do you know how to make use of it? Of course, there's a lot of reverse engineering. A lot of people do so. You remember when there was this attack to get this guy, what was his name? When Obama was there was this Al-Qaeda guy, right? Who was hiding in Pakistan border, Afghanistan, whatever. And then they came and killed him. But one of their helicopters, they couldn't take it back, so they had to shoot it to pieces. But they were scared that the pieces were picked up by Pakistan and given to China, who might do the reverse engineering to sort of construct another stealth helicopter, which can be deadly. Now, all of these don't work in this field. No reverse engineering. Bhagavan has hidden the secrets. Tena guptena te guptaha. Sesa vanastu kevalaha. Now, this is the most important thing. I think Sanatji was asking this question. Is it possible that I can do chanting of a mantra without knowing all the secrets? The top secret is realization of that God consciousness and complete surrender and ascendance to that self-realization. And what he's mentioning here, and that is why we're getting into different mantras, and there'll be a lot of discussion about it. What he's trying to say is, when I have hidden the power of these mantras, what are they? They are just letters. You might do Om Kling Krishna, Govinda, Gopajana Vallabha, Swaha, Nama, whatever, but you don't know the secret. The Guru is the only person who can give it to you, and it doesn't give you the secret. You may have the mantra. It's like a weapon you cannot use because you don't know how to operate it. And Bhagavan says, I have hidden the power of all this. So this is how he mentions that all of it requires an unfolding of the mysterious secrets of these mantras. And then once you know this, he's saying Vidya Sarira Satta Mantra Rahasyam. So these details, you have to unravel the mystery And then when you do mantra sadhana, then spiritual ascendance becomes easier and realized in a meaningful way. With that, we stop here because the commentary goes on and on. It'll take another class tomorrow because he's quoting a lot of couplets, but they are very useful because they'll tell us about all the vargas that we had discussed earlier. We'll take that up tomorrow, so I'll stop here. If you have any questions, we have a couple of minutes. Anybody, please ask any doubts, any questions you have. Any questions, any of you? Yeah, yeah, please.
Yes. Swamiji, just one clarification. How do you unfold the secret of these mantras then? Is
That
it
is
all
what
hidden by?
Yeah, so that is what we are going to do tomorrow. Different mantras have different secrets. So there is a book called, there are several books on the mantras. So you have and there are commentaries on different mantras. And so we have hundreds and hundreds of texts, agama texts, which deal with different mantras. So, of course, one lifetime is not enough to get into all these texts. But the basic discussions about these mantras and all, that we'll deal with and we'll move forward. And then slowly they will all appear. So we'll look at it tomorrow and then we'll. So, one very simple thing is that you can pick up books like, say, anybody who is writing any interesting book, say, for example, I would say that if you pick up a very simple book you want to read on the, so maybe I can stop the live streaming because this part is not relevant for general population.